For the past number of weeks, we've had amazing weather, blue skies and a lot of sun. Yet for the last 2 days, it's been a lot of rain. And what I was amazed is that the weather predictions were accurate, and they were able to let us know about it before it happened. And indeed, science is advanced to the extent that they are oftentimes able to understand and predict the weather. But there is one force of nature that is beyond the ability to understand. And it is that force of nature that I would like to discuss with you today and share with you where we see that in davening, and conclude with an amazing story with the Steipler Gaon. The second Hallelukah that we say every morning in Shachris is a little bit difficult to understand because it doesn't seem to follow one consistent thought. But let me share with you a thought that hopefully will bring about a greater amount of appreciation for it. It starts off talking about when Hashem will bring us back to Yerushalayim, and how the people who are in exile will then find consolation and be able to come back to safety and security. But then it seems to randomly talk about the ground producing sustenance and people being able to make a living. Then David Melech warns us not to fall into the trap of thinking that it is man's ingenuity or industry that's been able to bring it about, but it's rather those that look to Hashem. Es Yireyov is what Hashem wants, and those who seek His kindness. Then it goes back to talking about the forces of nature, of the rain and the freezing cold. And then once again it tells us that Hashem will send forth His words and be able to bring the rain about and thaw the frozen earth and allow it once again to grow. And then it concludes with, again, a very random piece of information. As Hashem says, Magid Dvov Yaakov, that He teaches His laws to Yaakov, Chukum Mishpatav Yisrael, and the laws and His rules to Klal Yisrael. But there are things that its man will not know, and they will never be able to predict the forces that it's in control. So what's going on here? I believe this last piece is really the key to understanding the whole thing. There are forces of nature, whether they bring about the rain or the snow and the cold, or whether it allows the ground to grow. And those are things that man has learned to understand, to use our ingenuity and our industry to be able to make them successful, or to be able to predict the weather as we see today. But there is a force of nature that is beyond human understanding, and that is Hashem has a plan. And that plan is bringing about the completion of the world, bringing the Geula, rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash, and having His children return home. And what affects that plan more than everything else is when we do His mitzvahs and when we call out to Him. And those are the things that will change the forces of nature with the true power and the true force of nature that brings everything about. Let me share with you an amazing story. That there was a couple that was trying to have children for many, many years. They sought out all the natural ways of doing so by speaking to the doctors and going to specialists, trying medications and different type of interventions, and nothing was successful. Throughout this time, they consulted with the Steipler Gaon and always asked them for his bracha, which of course he gave them. But nothing really brought about the solution or the miracle they were looking for. Finally, one night, they came to the Steipler Gaon and they demanded that he gives them a haftocha, a bracha, that it really will happen. And originally the Steipler Gaon did not want to do so. Eventually he succumbed and he told them, I will guarantee you, I will give you a bracha that you will have a child. And indeed, a year later, they were able to have a child, a son, and they invited the Steipler Gaon to be the son to get that bris. Bnei Brak and the world around was, of course, all on fire with this story. How the Meifus, this amazing miracle that the Steipler Gaon was able to bring about, a childless couple to have a baby, where science and technology had failed. It was not long after this that Rav Shach encountered the Steipler Gaon and he said, "Oh, I hear you've become a Baal Meifus. What did you do? What is your secret?" And the Steipler Gaon said and shared that normally he doesn't say Tehillim very much, but when this couple was so desperate and they needed so much to be able to have a child, He stayed up that night and said Sefer Tehillim. It took him a long time because he's not accustomed to saying it on a regular basis. But for the child and for a schutz for them, he did so. Rav Shach said, Tehillim, you said the Sefer Tehillim? That's not a moifus. That is a power and force of nature that overrides everything else. So in conclusion, while we aren't able to understand and predict Hashem's ways, this kapitel of Tehillim is telling us the secret that is most successful of affecting the world in a way that we are able to come closer to Hashem is by following His ways and crying out to Him and davening to Him whenever we can.